Today we're being joined by a very, very, very popular man in the AFL landscape, AFL umpire Razor Ray Chamberlain. Ray, thanks for coming on.
Cooper, it is my pleasure to be here, mate. How are you?
Not bad, thanks, you.
Excellent. What are we up to today?
Well, as of this recording, they will have seen it already. I just filmed my own Brownlow medal version. So my page nickname is Scoops. So I got what I call a Scoops medal. So I just did that now. When this airs, they already would have seen who won. It's very, very close. The top five, you could raffle it up between a bunch of names. So it was a really good count, Ray. But now, first off, how did the nickname Razor Ray come about?
Well, probably more publicly, I think BT and just him doing his thing. He gives nicknames to all sorts of people within the game. Obviously, I know Dion Prestia is the human meatball. I know he rolled that one out at one stage, and I was around the same stage. So, but I played cricket for the Melbourne Cricket Club when I first came to Melbourne. Meet some new mates, and I was the ump. They just knew me as the ump. I didn't even have a name, really. They didn't even call me by my name. And then I didn't know anyone in Melbourne. And then one day I made some runs and took a one-handed catch, a wicket-keeper batsman, and we won. And I batted with a Grey Nichols Razor bat. And so the boys there started calling me Razor. But all my life up until then, my nickname, my friends call me Chambo. So that's how I know where I know someone from. Like if they call me Chambo, it's from school or home. And then if it's Razor, well, it's, post AFL. So, yeah, mate, that's where that started.
Okay, good cricketer, Ray?
I was a bit of a hack. I was a grade cricketer. I played nationals and stuff. Like I'd play against guys like the famous players that you would know would be guys like Ricky Ponting and Mike Hackney, Brad Hodge, all those guys. And then Brett Lee and Brad Williams, Jason Gillespie, they all played at the same time that I was playing, and they'd flog us. But that was sort of as a teenager. And then as a young adult, I played some Colts cricket, and then came to Melbourne and played a season for Melbourne and played second grade at Melbourne. I was here for umpiring and for footy. I was pursuing that. And, we had unbelievable players at our club like Brad Hodge and Shane Harwood and Warren Ayres and actually Andrew McDonald, who's now the coach of the Australian Test cricket team. Obviously, he played at Melbourne. And, so it was a really awesome club and brilliant people who made you feel really welcome. So I love my cricket, mate.
Yeah. Now, all those names you mentioned you faced against and teamed up with, you, Ricky Ponting, guys like that, Brett Lee and that. Did you ever bowl any of them out, or if they were batsmen, did you whack them, or if they were bowlers, did you whack them around? Any of those particular names that you gave a hiding up to?
I will never claim to given anyone a hiding. Scoop. So we had a really interesting game. We played against New South Wales out in this near Hawkesbury in New South Wales, and it's like so humid and so hot. And the rules are really interesting back then. You could bat for 120 overs. So it was 100 overs on the first day, and then you could bat for an additional 20 overs maximum, and then you had to declare. And we batted our entire time, which really irritated New South Wales, right? And they had Nathan Bracken and all these guys playing, and it annoyed them enormously. And so they were pretty aggressive trying to chase the runs. And a guy named Mark Higgs, who you may not know, but he played for Australia in one-day cricket, and he played for New South Wales and South Australia. He took 5 wickets bowling left-arm spin. He bowled wrist spin and finger spin. You could do both. And we looked like we were going to roll them. And so they had to play for a draw. And that was probably, in my time, our most successful game. We got a bit chirpy at them that day.
You can imagine.
No, mate. We were on the end of a few hidings more so.
Yeah. That's fair. Now, we'll go to the AFL side of things. It's interesting to know that cricket career. I didn't know about that, so that's good to know. So what got you into umpiring, Ray? What sparked you into wanting to get into that path?
I played footy. I played AFL footy as a kid, and I love the game immensely and still do. And my mum wanted me to take a bit more of an interest in my younger brother, So she said, "Hey, come down and watch him. Come down and watch him play." And I was 17, he was 12. So I went down to watch him play one morning, and no umpire turned up to the game. And they asked me if I would umpire the game, and I needed some convincing. So the president of our club said he'd fill my car up with petrol and wouldn't let anyone abuse me if I did the game. So I said, "Okay, cool." So I did the game, and it was half-time. A gentleman by the name of Bob Stacey, who's a legend in Canberra in umpiring football circles. He's a really good man. He came and introduced himself to me, and he asked me how long I'd been doing it for, and I said 45 minutes. And he sort of said, no, like not today. And I said, no, I understood the question, Bob. I've been doing this for 45 minutes. And he said to me, mate, you can earn 6 figures doing this part-time. And this is 20, what's this now? That's 20 years ago. Longer than that.
Yeah.
30 years ago. 30 years ago. God, I am old. And
makes you think of it like that.
So 6 figures part-time, mate, 30 years ago, that was decent. So he had my attention, and I just found that I really enjoyed it. I loved it, and people were really kind and positive, which is not always the case, but they're very supportive. And so that sort of builds your confidence up and your self-belief and a bit of resilience and all that. And, I was okay at it. And I got to go away to trips to interstate, to Darwin. I went to Ireland with an underage Australian team. And I just found that I loved the game and I loved umpiring. And so that's how I got involved, mate.
Good. Now, what's a AFL umpire like? Obviously, more at least how the players, how the coaches and how their week goes. But what's the week of an AFL umpire like? Are you running through... Are you doing actual training? Are you doing running? How's it?
Yeah, so that will depend more on what time of the year it is. So in pre-season, we train a lot. That's when we're racking up, sort of 50-plus kilometre weeks with running and things like that. Some of the guys run crazy kilometres, but they're much younger than me. I've got a bit more of a modified program at my end. But every day has something. So it might be, so today I've got to review my match from yesterday. So I'll go home and do that this evening. And I've got to sort of self-assess, self-critique my performance and provide that feedback to my match day coach, who will have cut up some vision for me to review. So that'll be good decisions, poor decisions. It'll be teamwork. It'll be... we've got a system that we've got to operate in, and so where I've done that well or where I need to improve, all of those sorts of things. So that'll all come through to me online, and then I have to make comments and send that back. And then tomorrow, which is Tuesday, we meet in at Docklands, and we'll do some coaching there. So we do individual stuff, one-on-one. We do some stuff with our team from the weekend, so as a 4 and our match day coach. And then we have our whole group coaching, and we're in there. Gee whiz, it goes for, seems like forever. We're in for 3 or 4 hours doing that on a Tuesday. And then, of course, you've got your running training and your bouncing or your weights or Pilates or whatever it is that you're doing, physio. So there's something every day, mate, that you do. And then, I have a business that I'm a small business I'm the boss of and the owner of that I run. So that keeps my mind occupied with something outside of football, which I think's a good thing and healthy, and a family. So, you got to, every now and again, you got to turn up and see them, or they'll go, oh, it's good to see you still here, mate. We try and spend as much time there as we can, So it's a busy week, but I enjoy all of that stuff. It keeps you purposeful and it's good fun.
So how does the voting work? Obviously, after game you would do your votes as an umpiring group, but how does it work? Is it like a designated umpire that has the final say? Is it the most experienced? How does that work? Do you all collaborate together and then you add them up together? How does that go about?
Yeah, well, obviously one of the I can just the stuff that you can't discuss about the Brownlow, but I can certainly answer that question. So the 4 field umpires, they're responsible for the Brownlow, casting the votes. And there's no seniority, right? It's a democracy. We're all got even weight, and everyone's views need to be respected and heard and tabled. And then we we need to come to a consensus. And so, there's days when that's far easier than others. I've been involved in casting votes where we've been in and out in 15 minutes and we've felt pretty good about it. And we go, nah, that's how we saw it. And then I've been in there for days where, we've been there 45, 55 minutes and we're blueing and we can't, because we take it very seriously because we know the players care. And so we respect that enormously. And so whilst people will always have an opinion, we live in a Western culture, mate. So everyone's got an opinion on everything. That's fine. What I can say is we care about it. And so, we have to collaborate and come up with a consensus. So the field umpires, 4 field umpires, 3, 2, 1, and our job is to be able to arrive at a position that we feel who are the best and fairest players on the day.
Yeah. Now, I'll have to bring this up because I know if I don't bring this up, people are asking. So the Adelaide Sydney game last week, obviously you weren't involved in that game, but where were you when that incident happened, and what was your initial reaction to it when it happened?
I was at dinner with my wife, mate. So I'll be honest with you, when there are games that I'm not involved with, I love footy and I watch a lot of footy. I won't try and pretend that I'm Joe Cool and don't care. I really love the footy, and I love watching different players from different clubs, whether it be Sam Taylor at GWS, who I just think's an absolute phenomenal player as a defensive person, or whether it be a small forward at Melbourne or whoever it might be, that I just love how they play. So I do watch the footy, mate. But I was at dinner with my wife, mate. So I wasn't that emotively invested. And then you see the fallout from it. And of course, our job's to serve the game. Okay, that as the role of the umpires, we're there to serve the game. And who does that mean? That means the players, the coaches, but also the fans. We're there to help serve that. And so when we're involved in something that doesn't go to script, and that we hate, we loathe that. We don't want that. And so for any individual over the 20 years that I've been involved in AFL footy, there's been lots of this because we're human, like you and anyone who's listening. When you make it blue, it's very public. And everyone will have an opinion and everyone's pretty emotive. So it creates a bit of a storm. But, from my perspective, mate, we made a human error. We've acknowledged that. And the game, I'm sure, by the time we come back next year, I'm sure that there'll be tweaks to the system and all that sort of stuff to try and avoid that ever happening again.
Would you say that the technology I know it wasn't reviewing that, but this is just in general here. Do you think the technology into the goal? This is the goal review one. The technology needs to be better in terms of like a clearer picture, the clarity, of the camera angles, and everything like that.
What do you think?
Well, I mean, sometimes it's blurred. I think there's a lot of people that use comparisons of of other sports, like the Premier League with VAR and cricket with the review systems they've got. I feel it could be. I don't know. It could be cleared up a little bit because sometimes the pictures, they get blurred. Well, I suppose that just happens. But something to do, I suppose, with Snicko or something else. But again, is it true that if you shake the goalpost, that stops the decision being able to be made in terms of, like, for example, I think there was a game a couple of weeks ago where a player shook the post and then that kind of eliminates that because he shook the post. Then the Snicko will show that.
If the player's bodies hit the post simultaneously with when the ball's passing, how can you tell whether it was the player or the ball, right? So I won't be cheeky. I'll be honest with you, right? I think that if you can have great tech, that can help, can't it? Right? It'll help us with our decision making. But I'm a massive fan of lots of sports, rugby league. I'm not a great football fan, but I watch World Cups and things like that. Cricket I love. Mate, there's not a sport in the world, no matter what type of technology is involved, where fans, people and media don't get outraged by something. So
true.
I do believe that we should always strive to enhance it. I'm all for that. But if we think that that's going to eliminate people having the shits, I think you're mistaken, mate. I think you're going to be let down pretty hard.
Yeah. So how do you personally feel that the 4 umpiring systems worked? Has it worked in your eyes with the 4 umpires at once and compared to the 3 in the previous years?
So when you say worked, what do you mean by that? Like what when you're asking me that question, what is it you're really wanting to know?
Or did you, because obviously this is not so much me, it's more the general feel that some people reckon that having 4 has now made it different and a bit less worse than what it was last time because, they're overruling umpires. There's more eyes on it. But I think that people generally thought that having more would pick up on these, decisions where, it was a bit caught in close. Like say an umpire had a bad view and then an additional person more than likely would have a better view.
Yeah, I'll answer it like this, okay? In my time in the game, so you can drive a Porsche, okay? Not a bad car, right? Think about it. Porsche GT 911, brand new, it's mint, right? It's a decent wheel. Yeah. Now, if you pour sand into that Porsche, it will go like a busted ass, okay? So the system's one thing, and then obviously it's what you put in it, and then for us, that's humans, right?
Yeah.
And how well are they umpiring, and how good are they, and all those sorts of things, okay? We have a really bizarre game that we all love, all right? So let's talk about the rules briefly, okay?
Yep.
We have words like this: reasonable time, genuine attempt, prior opportunity, right? They're not black and white, right? They're subjective in their nature. So you might see it one way. I see it completely the opposite. And we may both have equally reasonable argument, right? So we're kind of both right on the same thing, yet we've got a totally different view. So there's always going to be debate, regardless of how many people you put out there with a whistle, all right? But what I'll say about the system is this. I have found it personally when I'm umpiring with the best guys and girls, I have found it I'm under less physical stress when I'm making decisions, okay? And we are seeing more information in a more comfortable manner. So that would lend itself, you would think, to humans being able to make more consistent, accurate decisions. Does that mean that we don't make mistakes anymore? No, that doesn't mean that. But I do think the system is a good one. I think it will enhance what we do. And I think there are lots and lots of benefits. That's my personal opinion.
Yeah, it's fair. So obviously the final series coming up, obviously you'll be a part of that, I would think. How many years do you reckon you have left in umpiring at an AFL level?
I had a conversation with my wife, and I was to retire in 2017, but I'm still here, mate. So, so it's weird, right? And, you talk about finals and stuff. There's lots of different things that go into that. I've been really lucky, man. I haven't missed finals since 2006. So I've umpired finals. If I've been fit and healthy, I haven't missed finals since 2006. So, and it's the best time of the year. Like, it's so much fun. But there's lots of play this year. There's lots of different issues, particularly for me. I don't bounce the ball anymore. So, and that's because I have an injury that relates to my back, my lumbar spine, right? So I'm not prepared to risk herniating a disc for bouncing the football. So for me, it'll mean that I won't be involved this September. We'll know that officially tomorrow, but I've known for about 5 months that won't be something that will be available for me this year. So I'll be cheering the lads on and wanting them to do super well. But it's a cracking time of the year, mate. And in terms of retiring, I had a look. I've done 381 games now.
Here we go. 19 more.
So, well, you know what? Like, it'd be something cool to try and achieve. It's not the end of the world. But I think I'd like to come back and umpire next year. I've been offered a spot. So, so long as my family are okay with it, I'd like to come back and have another go.
That's good to hear, Ray. To be honest, do you think there should be more umpires with a bit more personality, or do you feel that there is more umpires with personalities, but you're highlighted the most because you've been there the longest with that personality?
Our group we're so diverse. We are, if you look at it on the surface, we're dominated by male and we're dominated by white males, okay? If you just look at it visually, all right? Now, I know in community levels of umpiring and the AFL has been great investment to see more cultural and gender diversification, and I know that that's coming up through community footy, and that's coming up into the more elite levels, which is awesome, okay, to be more reflective of our society more broadly. What I will say is even amongst this group that look very male and very white, they're so diverse. We've got so many different interests, and all of them are cracking people, actually. I really love our group. One thing about our group, mate, that you might not know, they're very supportive of that difference. Like you got absolute right to be who you are and be embraced by our group, which is super cool. They are great people. They're funny. But the point is, Cooper, in our gig, if you put your head up, you generally get a kick in the back of it, right? So you can understand why a lot of umpires go, no, I'm not interested in doing any of that, because there's not a lot of positivity that comes from that if you do.
Yeah.
And so I can understand why they like to play it a little safer and colour between the lines. And ultimately too, mate, like the stars of the game are the players. Like that's who everyone comes to watch and want to see and celebrate. The main thing for me is I like to try and advocate for the laws of the game and and try and help people understand what the game's asking of the umpires. So rather than just be sitting at home at the couch having the shits going, I don't know what they're doing out there, trying to just say, hey, look, this is what we're being asked to do. And I think some of that communication hopefully helps fans a little bit. You still boo, you still get cranky, you'll still think you're ripped off, but you've got a bit more of an idea about what the umpires are being asked to do. That's what I'm trying to do, mate.
So if you were in charge of making the rules in the AFL, what rules would you implement, or what rules that is currently involved that you like, or things you change or add?
I love anything that's around the safety for the players. They're so brave, man. Like they sometimes need protecting from themselves. They're crazy, and they're so big and strong and fast. Like, you look at a guy. Like I was looking at a guy yesterday, Callum Mills, right? He's a big guy, right? Like he's tall, he's athletic, and he's fast, and he's so strong, and he's skillful. And like 25, 30 years ago, he'd play centre-half forward. And now he's running around on the ball, right? So like they're massive humans, massive. And I've got great admiration and respect for the players. And I love actually being so close and being able to see what they do. So anything to do with making sure their welfare is okay, I'm all for. I think there's some stuff around. Around that can be simplified. There's lots of different rules that you wouldn't even know, mate. Like where if you change one thing, it affects 10 others. Which ones do you not like?
Well, I don't know. Sometimes it depends if it's working in your team's favour or not in some instances. It's always the case. Now, actually, one thing I want to bring up, because every time I talk to other people, when they bring up the free kick tally count, is it doesn't have to be even, but it's more so where you get them and how you get them. That's what I feel anyway.
You know what? I'll upset a few people here, right? But I don't care. For 2 hours, right? Teams play and they battle one another. And there's no doubt, I've played as a player in footy and in cricket. You get given out, you haven't nicked it. You're like, Jesus. I understand that decisions are made that impact the game. No doubt about that, okay? They pay the players what they pay them for a reason. Because they are the greatest influence over the game. They have 2 hours to sort it out. And whether you get a free kick here or a free kick there, like winners win. And when you get beat, you whinge in the corner. So I tend to think that we should be more worried about what the players are doing, celebrating what they're doing, and don't worry about the guys and girls in the green shirts too much. You'll get good ones, you'll get bad ones, you'll get a bad one that you think's a good one. Like I've been around this game way too long. And in terms of free kicks, mate, I've been in games where I've paid 3 free kicks for the whole game, and I've been in games where I paid 25, 26 free kicks for the whole game.
individually.
Literally. So does that mean? So does that mean I was great one day and poor the next?
Yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it?
So as an umpire, Cooper, all you do, right, is what do? You observe the game. You just observe what happens, right?
Yeah.
So I can't make a player tackle a player in the head.
Correct.
I can't make a player grab a guy who doesn't have the ball and throw him on the ground.
Yeah.
So that either happens or it doesn't.
That's right.
So I think the attention there needs to potentially be put in a different direction than the dudes in the green shirts.
Yeah. I get it, because like I say to some people.
It's just my opinion, that's all.
That's fair. Everyone's allowed an opinion, right? Everyone has one. You mentioned there, like, if the free kicks don't have to be even, they can be whatever it is. But like you said, if there's a lot of players giving head-eye tackles and that escalates and they're doing a lot of unnecessary dumping behind play after they've kicked it or whatnot, I mean, then the free kick looks up. And you look at them individually and you go, well, they're obvious ones, and it's just bad luck on their end for doing what they're doing. Now, the one rule I want to mention to you was the stand rule. The one that you mentioned earlier about if I had to pick one, it might be that. But it's more so when players are probably more exploiting it than the rule itself, because you have to, obviously, as you say, stand. And like a player pretends to, say, run one direction or kick one direction, or they just stand still and the player walks past and they go pointing there because, they're going to kick that way, but they never were planning to kick. That's probably what annoys me the most, with the players kind of try and exploit it, where you can tell they're not going to kick one way, but they turn around and see a player on the opposition walk beside them and pretend like they were going to kick that way when their eyes weren't even looking that way to begin with.
Yeah, well, we try to adjust that a little bit now. So if a player balks but doesn't actually move, and the player on the mark sort of steps, so long as they stop, we won't pay 50. We'll just, so long as they stop and go, and they stop, we'll go, no, that's cool, stand. So we're trying, because we agree with you. I think you're right with that. And so that's the way we're being asked to interpret and implement that rule. But I'll say this about stand, right? So some people are, stand, but they are the same people that 5 years ago were whinging that the ball wouldn't move up and down the ground, and they'd play kick to kick around the back, and it's so slow, the ball movement, it's so boring, and it's like rugby union. And so then they bring in a rule to help promote ball movement, and then they whinge about that. And so I sort of sometimes start to wonder, do we just like whinging?
Well, everyone loves whinging at some point, don't they?
Well, I don't know, mate. I'm not one for it, to be honest. I kind of try and look at things that are going well in life and lean into that, mate. It's a much more joyous experience than pissing a mate in the corner. Just my opinion. That's
fair. Shortage of umpires. I'll get to some fun questions left soon, but shortage of umpires. You'll like them, I can tell you will. So the shortage of umpires, how do you recommend people that want to get into umpiring, well, you mentioned your journey, how it happened, but obviously your journey was a little bit different. You were kind of asked it, but like for someone that wants to just start fresh, and where should they go and how should they go about it?
Yeah, so if you jump onto the AFL website, you've got to scroll all the way to the bottom, funnily enough, and it's the very, very last thing on their website, and it's Umpire AFL, and you click on that. That will help. That's one way you could do it. The other way is you could go to your local footy club and speak to somebody there at the club who's an official and say, hi, interested in getting into umpiring. Would you be able to help connect me with our local leagues organisation and who the relevant contact person is? And I'm going to say it's such a cool game, Cooper. And look, and generally speaking, players and clubs at local level are unbelievably welcoming. Yep. You'll hear about some stuff like in anything in life. Every now and again, there's some, you might get a little bit of negative stuff or what have you. I think it helps build some resilience, coping mechanisms. But I will say this, it's a great game. It's great. It's a great sport to be involved in. You get to keep fit. You learn lots of different skills, and they pay you to do it, mate. It's I love it, and I'm really grateful that I've been a part of it.
Now, this instant, this is where it gets to the funniest side of things. Obviously, a while ago, this was when how do I best describe it? When someone kicked I can't remember the play off the top of my head, but they kicked the ball at you and hit you down low. How did you feel that game? And I can't remember who that player was. But did they
Dylan
pay
Grimes,
you back up?
mate. It was Dylan Grimes. I don't hold a grudge, but it was Dylan Grimes.
Has he paid you back for it? Has he repaid you some way?
So it was quite funny. It didn't get me flush, right? So we have our spare whistle, and we've got like a little toggle inside the front of your shorts, and that's where you stow it. And it hit me flush on that, so there's a massive bruise on the inside. But I couldn't. It came at me so fast, and I couldn't get out of the way of it. I couldn't jump over it, and so it just flushed me. But the players were hilarious. They laughed. Crowd were unbelievable. They gave me plenty of positive feedback. So, mate, sometimes in life it doesn't go to script, but you can have a giggle and move forward, mate. It's okay.
Now, did you bring your cricket in when you went like that as well?
That's middle stump, mate. That's ours.
Now, what's some of the best outside of that one? What's some of the best player interactions you had, whether you're giving them lip back or they've tried giving you lip and you've ignored them or you've given them the hand? I've noticed you've done in the past.
Yeah, look, I think some of my favourite players to umpire and chat with and whatever, guys like Andrew Mackey and Ben Hudson, who played in the ruck for Adelaide originally and then the Bulldogs, and now he's an assistant coach up at Brisbane. And those sorts of guys have got a great sense of humour. I love seeing guys like Max Gawn and these sorts of guys. I'll always have a great joke with you. So they're the players who were the most fun. Actually, I was at Sydney yesterday and I saw Lance Franklin walk around and do his thing with kids and wife, and that was really cool. And the crowd were going nuts. And he was always great with little funny jokes along the way, telling how much he was going to kick on his opponent and whatever else. So, I've got to say the players are, generally speaking, it's never nasty. It's always sort of funny stuff. It's more funny and cutting than nasty stuff. And there's always entertaining moments happening out on the field, mate.
Is it? Well, you say there's not many nasty things. What is some of the worst things someone said to a player? This is that you can repeat. Is there any that are too over the top to repeat?
Yeah, no, I won't go there because I think this is the other thing, right?
Yeah.
And I was reflecting on this with a friend over dinner the other week. He was asking me about this, and I told him a couple of stories that I won't be able to say here. Yeah. But I said one of the things I said to him was like, there are players on the field who I don't have a great relationship with at all, right? And it's not anything to do with me specifically. I think it's more the persona and the face mask that they have on when they walk onto the ground. And so I don't ever try and, particularly when you don't know them away from the field. So there's players around town, you might go to their training or you might run into them out somewhere and have a beer or a coffee or whatever, and you get to know one another, and that's cool. But then there are players that you never speak to or see except on the ground. And I'm never going to judge who they are as a person and a human based on the 2 hours they're on the ground fighting for a victory. Do you know what I mean? Like they're not going to be the same human being there as they are off the ground. So whenever there's any of that stuff, I think if you take that too personally, you're probably in the wrong gig.
Yeah. Now, some fan interactions, whether that's at the game or in public, do you get stopped for photos much?
To my daughter's disgust, she thinks it's embarrassing. But no, to be honest, people love footy, mate. Like you, like you, right? And just like me, they love footy. They love to talk about it and ask questions and whatever. And 99 times out of 100, people are brilliant, and I love footy too. So we actually have that in common. And I really, that's why I love living in Melbourne. I love living in Melbourne where footy's like oxygen. And so I wouldn't change that at all.
Yeah, one final question. I'm not going to ask you about the Brownlow for obvious reasons. So who do you think will win the Premiership this season?
Yeah, good question. I got asked this morning on radio, and obviously, I can tell you, I'm not umpiring finals, right? So, so I've got no say in it at all. The thing I love about and why I'm a little bit envious and almost jealous, to be honest, that I won't be out there is I can mount a case for every team that's in the 8, right? Every team in the 8 will go, we're in this up to our eyeballs. And every team in the 8 would also go, ooh, we're not going so great here, or gee, I wish we had this fixed, or we're missing that player. So I think that's actually brilliant. You look at it and you go, wow, this is going to be a cracking month. So, mate, I won't give the answer there, only to say that there's some teams there that have been pressing for a long time now and playing finals consistently. They'll have great belief, and yet they haven't got there and haven't won one yet. So that still sits in the back of their mind. And then you've got teams like, say, Melbourne, who have won the comp before, right? Yeah. So they'll have lots of confidence as well. I just think it's going to be brilliant. So I'm very much looking forward to it. I'll have my fanboy hat on, cheering for the guys in green, and hoping that we're able to put our best foot forward so that the players get to put on a cracking show, and that they determine what goes on.
I'll add one more final question, Ray. So I really appreciate you coming on. What is the best? No, I'm assuming it's going to be a grand final, but you've been in more than one. So what has been the best individual game that you've umpired in, whether it's just in general or the game was close? Is any game at all, even if it's not a grand final, what's the best game you've been involved in?
Yeah, cool. The drawn grand final was just so surreal for many, many reasons. So I'll always hold that quite dearly. Preliminary final day is always the hardest game to umpire, always, because for us, you desperately want to umpire a grand final, right? And there's been less than 60 people ever in the history of the game, less than 60 people have umpired a grand final, right? Okay. And so you're so close. So there's always external pressure that you've got to try and block out. Cool. But the game that outside of that grand final that sticks to my mind was in 2009, and St Kilda and Geelong played one another at Marvel. And they were both undefeated. It was like round 17 or something like that.
14 or something, maybe. I remember that being a Saints fan, yes.
Yeah, and Michael Gardner clunked the mark in the goal square, kicked his fourth goal, and they won by a kick. And it was a full house. It was so loud. And I was young. I was still very young in my umpiring career. And that's probably the best game I've ever been involved in.
Yeah, I was going to say that game was being a Saints fan. Actually been there. I'm only 25 now, so I don't know, 16 years ago. So there you go, about 9 or 10. And that was a great game to be too. And you mentioned the drawn granny there. I try not to say nothing there because it still gives me nightmares, the bounce and everything. But Ray, I really appreciate you coming on, and thank you for coming. I really do appreciate it. It's been a long time coming, so I wish you all the best for potentially next year if your wife lets you umpire again.
Hey, listen, Gibber, I appreciate your patience and respecting what I had to go through to be able to get to this sorted out today. Love your passion for the game, mate, and thanks for having a little bit of an insight into what the umpires do.
No, it's Ray. Thanks for coming. I appreciate it.
Cheers, mate.